Solid.
Yep, Audit Solve, yes, sir,
Yep.
Audit Solve. So, my name is Gene Whitfield. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at Audit Solve. We've been around, I'll tell you a little backstory, kind of how I'm going to do a little backstory about who we are, kind of our value add, what we kind of see as far as where we think we can take you, to be honest with you. Kind of talk about engineering. I brought actually the engineer that will be servicing your account because I think it's important, just like kind of like dating, to understand who you'll be working with as you're used to having Raleigh, having that person to talk to and strangle and say, get my IT done. So that's kind of what we're going to go through. So Audit Solve was actually, it's actually owned by two cardiologists out of Chicago. And it was invented, the word audit, from the HIPAA compliance audits that came out in 2009, based upon the HIPAA omnibus rule. So as the doctors had a lot of connections and whatnot, and since you took electronic health medical record funding, you had to get a security risk assessment done yearly. So they thought it was a scenario to make a little money on the side with all their partnerships. And what had happened is almost overnight, as audits were being done around the technology sphere or landscape, the overwhelming question was, okay, you found these breaches. You found these things that need to be mitigated. Can you fix them? So overnight, not overnight, but theoretically overnight, we became an IT company because we had to now not only do the compliance and governance to provide to CMS, but also provide a high-level IT for infrastructure and security. So that led them into my background, where I come from a value-added reseller. Been doing this now for close to 20-odd years. So once I came on to Audit Solve, my focus was managed services, what we're in now, where we look at someone's IT infrastructure and go, okay, this is where you stand now. Let's look at an IT roadmap and let's see how to get there. But also, we work with a lot of different enterprises, you know, small, medium, large. Everyone has a vision, right? But not everyone has the wallet, right? It's where vision, well, I always say vision meets wallet. And some folks want to slam a certain agenda down just because of partnerships and whatnot. We've kind of actually walked that back because I'm not a big fan of that. We have true consultants, right? And that's really our pitch, is that we are not a hardware provider. I know maybe some of the presentations will be around kind of a hardware scenario, but it's not our cup of tea. Not meaning that we can't get you hardware. We have some of the biggest partnerships out there. But I think there can be a conflict of interest if you're a true consultant, especially to a non-for-profit or a county government where there's tax dollars to be taken, that our role is to be a consultant, meaning we have to fill Raleigh's chair. Last time I checked, the people like Raleigh aren't making money on IT hardware that they sell you because it's vision meeting wallet. It's someone selling a Dell hardware piece or an HPE or a Lenovo. We don't care what it is as long as our vision in here and whoever is our main point of contact says this is where we want to get to. Here is our budget and price point. This is all of our taxable dollars. Gene, Aaron, how do we get there? We'll go to anywhere, whether it's CDWG pricing, we'll use WSCA contracts, we'll use Illinois state contracts. We know all of those different scenarios, but it's not going to be on our paper. You don't see an invoice from Audit Solve with 7 Lenovo laptops. I just feel, and I always felt that it's a conflict of interest to push hardware that you're making money on, when at the end of the day, we should be servicing and consulting your business. So that's kind of one differentiator than probably most folks in this scenario. At the end of the day, a lot of this things, hardware stuff goes out to bid. Sometimes it doesn't under a certain scenario, but we are your liaison. We're going to be your bastion to tell you this is a good product, this is not a good product, because we see it in such a large landscape, whether it's from a nonprofits that we work with, or some of the larger companies like Hankook Tire or St. Louis Blues. It doesn't matter from our landscape, it just matters what your wallet is and where you're trying to get to. So from our kind of another biggest, I guess, differentiator, Managed Network Service has been around since 2000, right? And it's a scenario where you can evaluate a multitude of engineers into a lump sum dollar that's hopefully lower than the cost of an IT guy outside, right? That's the main stipulation around it. The problem is over that 15, 17, 18 years that we're at now, we've gotten to what we call helpless desk. And it's no fault of anyone on it, just like anything from an IT perspective. The curve is changing, meaning that the help desk has now become helpless because you're used to calling in and having your guy, especially how you guys are set up. You're used to having Raleigh at a phone call, and maybe within 15, 20 minutes, or at least he'll be on the phone go, hey, Alex, I'll be 10 minutes away, or Angie, hey, I'm sorry about your Outlook problem. I'll be there in a second, I have a server, right? And you're used to that immediateness, right? A lot of other companies are gonna say, oh, we have the best help desk, we have the best help desk. Well, unless your help desk is literally down the road, or literally down the road within some type of 20-minute scenario, they're not gonna have that immediacy that you are used to. So that level of service is gonna be drastically different than what you're getting into. So we do what I call the reverse model. Whereas everybody else will go, you call into a number, you get some usually lower level engineer, not always, but it's still a lower level engineer. And then what do? They pass you around the helpless tree. Figure out, okay, oh, that's a little harder of a problem, Angie. Let me get you to somebody else. Let me get you to someone else, right? And then, since they're lower level people, they want to climb the ladder as well. So what happens to those folks that used to know your systems? Well, they leave and they go to Boeing, or they go to CMO and they get another job. So there's this constant revolving scenario on this lower tier engineering on your help desk. We said, heck with that. That's not a sustainable model, right? At least in what I've seen, because I've done this model, to be honest with you. And I saw too much of attrition, not only in engineering, but customers, right? So what we do is not top-down selling, but top-down engineering. I only give you a tier 3 engineer. My average engineering experience is 15 years. I pay my engineers well. If you're with me for 3 years, you become vested in our company. We're an employee-owned company because we want to give back, and it makes our attrition rate of employees nothing, right? But our engineer to account base, right? So normal M&S companies, IT companies, copier companies that are probably going to come in here have an engineer ratio of like 1 to 25. One engineer covers 25 accounts, okay? Well, they got to do that is because the cost of the engineer and has the economy of scales have to spread to make that work from a profitability standpoint. But who suffers is the engineer gets burnt out, with accounts. But at the end of the day, you're going to suffer from service level. So my guys, 5 accounts. Aaron does not have more than 5 accounts. My other engineers, I have 19 engineers, they do not have more than 5 accounts. It's a 1 to 5 ratio. And because of that, he doesn't want to leave me. He doesn't get stressed out and want to choke me out after this and say, Gene, you're loading me up with so much to do. And 2, we haven't lost an M&S customer since 2009. And I always say, we're not people's first choice. Sometimes we're high, and that's fine. I mean, we got to make some money because we only limit our guys to 5 accounts and we pay them well. But I always say, we're not people's first choice, but since 2009, we've been people's last choice. And the reason is because we mimic Raleigh being there as close to it can be. Aaron, his locale, he's out of Cape, 20 minutes away. Aaron has been the CIO of a ISP for 15 years, did a startup for a gaming company. His breadth of knowledge is as deep and as wide as you'll find in this 30 to 60 mile stretch of area, to be honest with you. And we're giving it to you at a value. So our value prop will be, because I think I know, minus a couple companies, I know our value prop is way higher than most folks, especially with everything that we bring to the table, not just from an everyday IT, right, that we're kind of bidding on today, but it's also those intangibles that you're used to from a butt in a seat type scenario, but also our intangibles is our background in cybersecurity. We have to do cybersecurity in the medical field for some high-end clientele. Very good. You see our reference list, and I can give you more references as needed. But our reference list, since we have a cybersecurity background, we have economy of scales in our platform that we can offer to nonprofits, to be honest with you, and county governments at a minimal scenario and have that same level of protection and resiliency as a St. Clair County, as a, I'm going to say Cook County because that's just a different ball of wax, But Madison County, some of the bigger counties that have the budget, you can have those same type of resiliencies and economy of scales within your IT infrastructure, because I always say we're kind of like Robin Hood. We don't make our money on our nonprofits. We don't make a lot of money on our government business. We make our money on our enterprise business. And we strategically pick accounts. And Union County, you're gonna be like, AuditSoft, why is a St. Louis company coming down here? Like, you're like, that's probably the stick against me when people are throwing darts at me, right? Well, to be honest with you, it's all referral based. I have 2 sales guys. Actually, I couldn't be here because they're in Cancun right now. But anyway, that's a different story. So I have to do it. But we're not heavy sales. We're heavy engineering, because what I have to sell is service and consulting. I don't have a product. If you're selling a product like laptops and tough books and cop cars and video films, you have to have sales guys when you're selling a product. My product, he's there. The bearded gentleman to my right. So that is my product, and that's what we make a lot of money on, right? And then you might go, okay, well, Gene, I'm doing math. I'm a smart guy, smart gal. One account, or one engineer, 5 accounts, unless they're charging an astronomical amount for that engineer, how are they even making money? Good question. How we really make our money is our projects. And it's in the book under special missions, right? Where we really make money, and it's why I kind of recruit. I kind of call myself Bobby Bowden of IT, is how I recruit, the best and the brightest engineers that not only can be a social extrovert, not like never been kissed in their mom's basement, computer lights, right? We don't do that. We have social extroverts, or IT extroverts. So these guys, and Aaron specifically, he did Snap-on Tools, 25,000 user migration globally. Just even assuming Aaron Wallace did that. He did St. Louis Blues Office 365 migration. We did Hankook Tires security perimeter white hat session. But he's here for that price, because we make our money on projects, to be honest with you, because Dell, CDW, and SHI, all global companies, we have a 7-state territory. We have an MSA, it's called Major Services Agreement. And we have a major service agreement with all those folks that any project within our scope, Microsoft stack that we're good at, we get first right of refusal. So I see these types of projects all the time. So I incentivize my engineers to do these projects, but they're all remote based, so they can do them in a different scenario. So I'm kind of opening up the kimono, as they say, because I want to show you why we can offer you a value, but still give you the whole buffet at the same time. It's because of our engineering. That's where we separate ourselves. That's where we're different than anyone else, to be honest with you. It's our 1-to-5 ratio, our engineering prowess, and that we don't have to chase hardware dollars to keep employees in the seats. We're very efficient that way, and our referral business really speaks for itself, to be honest with you. So from an AuditSoft scenario, that's kind of who we are. Based upon our roadmap, which is next to our pricing sheet, one of the things that I think that, and you guys know this from, even in the meeting with Raleigh, there are some definite scenarios where Union County wants to improve and needs to improve, not only for just keeping up with the times right from technology, but also just cybersecurity in general, just because there's been a lack thereof, whether it's tax dollars or competencies. I mean, it's not a knock at anybody. It's just whether you have that high tent in your high pole in your tent. So, of course, our general recommendations are some of the bullet points that you wanted us to address. And these bullet points that I'm addressing in here, besides that one, number 4, migrate to current host mail, Office 365. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it up. I didn't know how many people were going to be here. So I didn't do PowerPoint because I hate that about PowerPoint. So besides this migrate current host to mail, right, Office 365, everything on here, everything, including the price. It's turnkey. We're a turnkey shop. There is no, I got to call Aaron after hours. Oh, 125. Oh, this project looks like we want to get public Wi-Fi out over at Ambulance District. Oh, we need to add some Wi-Fi. Okay, here's a couple recommendations of Wi-Fi. Oh, can you put that up there and configure it? It's included. That's not another change order, a $125 charge. For folks like nonprofits and government agencies, I know budgeting is at the paramount. So in having a budgetable amount that is static across all platforms that you need to have, we address that and say, this is our lump sum price. It will not change. It will not change unless the project itself is so enlarged of scope that it would have to change. But the only one that I see on our IT roadmap that need to be addressed is going from your current kind of homemade mail scenario that Raleigh, which I dig into that, but Raleigh mandates to actually Office 365 and your own secure tenant. That's some work effort. That's some heavy lifting. I won't be able to include that because there's too many unknowns for me coming into a 2-day discovery and kind of understanding what's going on. So I can't include that. But everything else from implementing BYOD policies, and let me just start from the top. It's everything from consolidation from AD domain servers, so consolidating the AD. I think there's like 7 different Active Directories out there, which we need to probably consolidate with all my work with cities and counties. Probably it's usually ambulance, city gov, sheriffs. That's usually pretty clean, right? And you need to migrate from the 7 and then all these servers that you have so we can consolidate and get a more clean, what they call landscape or environment. Replace legacy switching with man switching. We're going through a county right now that we can't reference because I don't reference accounts until they've been with us 6 months. But we're going through this same scenario with a kind of a rural Missouri county right now that's less than 20 miles away from you that has non-managed switching. And by putting managed switching in that's not expensive, has increased our efficiencies, what, 6 times there? 6-fold? At least. So they're small things and they're not really expensive things either. So they're within the budgetable realm. Upgrade your internal and public Wi-Fi. That's in our wheelhouse. We can do that for you. It's not outside our scope. Of course, migrate host email to Office 365. That'll be a project. Upgrade workstation and laptops based on life cycle approach. We usually do a 5 to 6 year life cycle approach. Understand, do an audit of what you have currently. Look at based upon serial numbers and drives and utilization of drives. Come give you a report on these are the 5 or 6 biggest offenders. We need to upgrade these 6 quickly, right? And then have a life cycle approach and find the best price for you. I'm not going to push a product that we like better than what we can find on a state contract. Heck, there could be a vendor that presents here today, because I know CDS has it on a state contract, that we might buy from them. I have no problem. It's all about the best deal for you guys. I don't care who we work with, because I literally sit in that chair. Aaron's going to sit in that chair and work for you. So, at the end of the day, the life cycle approach of how we mitigate workstations in and out, that's our job. How we get pricing, that's our job as well. But who we get from, we're going to negotiate the best pricing for you for your budget. So, security recommendations. We're going to conduct internal and external vulnerability scans because as a city governance in general, but also being a sheriff department, there has to be stipulations around CJIS, which all my guys are CJIS certified, which is Criminal Justice Information Systems, right? So all my guys are CJIS certified because we do a lot of major case squad up in St. Louis, a lot of forensics, right? A lot of hacking of certain type of evidentiary scenarios that might adjudicate a trial, right? So we do a lot of that. So having an external and internal vulnerabilities check, which we do really well, we can see where those holes are to the opening, where the holes to the world are out there, and we can plug them, right? For a fairly inexpensive scenario. We're not talking about like Splunk or these real indigenous force point algorithm type scenarios that cost millions of dollars. We can do it Linux-based, which is what a lot of hackers and a lot of white hat, what they call guys do, because it's called open source code, which means that we can write it, because we do this for a living, to where it finds all those alerts, all those monitoring scenarios at a fraction of that charge for when someone wants to push a button and dictate a report. We do this all the time for folks. So we're going to conduct an internal and external vulnerability assessment. We're going to deploy a managed AV solution. So if you have AV now, within that cost, we will probably rip that out unless you just bought that AV solution. So I don't want to, mess up anybody's budgetary scenarios of how you guys, buy certain things. I don't even know. Is July 1 your guys' November 30th is your guys' calendar? Okay. So we'll deploy our managed AV solution depending on when you want us to deploy an AV solution. That's included. We'll implement our ransomware toolkit, which our ransomware toolkit is our proprietary scenario that actually actively penetrates your network like a hacker would, but without that malicious code. We have a patent on it. It's about 10 days later than what DoD gets from the variants and vulnerabilities that come out. We get it 10 days later, and we deploy it to a lot of our Fortune 500. So you're getting that. That's called Javelin. It's just a standard operating procedure we use because it allows us to be less boots on the ground, but at the same time, our accounts become rock solid and have a foundational security path that we know from a day-to-day perspective that's solid. So we include that. Document and verify user access control policy. It's one of those things when we first come to a scenario that may or may not have technology that's been duct taped to keep things going. We have to verify user access. Old employees are out of the system. Old computers are taken out of Active Directory. It has to happen. So this is just us doing some of the legwork and saying, who should have access to this? Why do they have access to this? Did you know this person had access to this? A lot of hard questions of who needs to still have access to things. So that's our user access. BYOD policy. So what a BYOD is, a play on words to BYOB, of course, but it's bring your own device. So as the technology world is ever evolving, and you guys want a more public-facing Wi-Fi and internal Wi-Fi that's resilient, having a solid BYOD initiative of what is the standard operating procedures when you bring your device in, when your sheriffs bring a device in that's not issued, and what this chain of command it is, or this actual chain of custody it is to actually log on to a secure Wi-Fi connection. What are they able to look at? We can put that document together to actually have a fortified BYOD initiative because devices are happening more, and very rarely do, except banks, have a solid no, you're not bringing a device in. Especially at a public-facing organization as you are, it's an inevitability, especially even in this room when you guys do meetings at whatever time frame. So we'll make sure that's there. Deploy an MDM solution. So what that is a mobile data kind of management. So for cell phones, so we can push updates, we can push Outlook. So Angie calls at 5 o'clock at night and her new iPhone, maybe Android, her new iPhone gets a new update, and all of a sudden it breaks Outlook. Well, Aaron or any of my other guys remote in with the MDM solution, wipe her phone from a scenario of that patch, and then roll her back to the scenario until we can actually see the phone in person and go, all right, let's put this Outlook client on there, and so you don't have a loss of email or anything like that. We can do it for the sheriffs, we can do it for ambulance, we can do it for anyone who has a, say, I want to say approved mobile device that you want to cover under this agreement. It's a blanket MDM solution, so it's not additional cost. All these things I'm talking about are not an additional cost to what my dollar figure is right there. Backup recommendations. So these are implement a backup and DR plan. So I don't know if you guys have ever had a kind of a DR test. Like, okay, we're going to pretend we just lost power. Or we're going to pretend ransomware just ransacked this building, and we want to see resiliency. We want to see what our backup solution will do. I know city governments that I work with have to do this yearly. And then maybe that's just based upon some voting. I don't know if it's actually mandated. But they want to know that if something happens, because this is not a 8x5 type scenario, this is a 24/7, what you guys do at least. So they want to know that their uptime is there. So we'll do a DR test with your current backup strategy and see if it holds water. If it doesn't, we're going to come back and say, all right, this is the things we have to learn at. We have to look at RTO, which is recoverable time objective. What do you want your recoverable time objective to be? And then we'll try to get there. We'll talk about maybe solutions to look at that. We'll talk about inexpensive ones. We'll talk about maybe cloud version ones, depending on where you guys want to go as your vision that meets your wallet. We'll go there. But at jump off, we have to make sure your DR strategy that you have now holds water, because I don't know if it does. I don't know it runs across a fiber connection to the hospital, but I don't know if that's ever been tested where you shut down everything and see if you can pull up access to them. I mean, I don't know. So we want to test that, make sure it's resilient, see what the degradation is to like officers or ambulance, and see like, holy cow, this is like I'm 1995, right? Or maybe it works. Maybe it works fine. But at the end of the day, we're going to figure that out if you choose us. So, we'll go back here. The equipment summary of what's covered. So, if you look at our contract is can be lengthy, right, to some degree, and it covers us. But at the end of the day, our equipment summary, and I just put down numbers because we didn't have a chance, and I know this was brought up. Usually when M&S companies or companies like myself come in, there's usually like a discovery period where I get to like put like some software on and I figure out where everything's at. Aaron figures out, we have a meeting, we go, okay, this is what they have, kind of thing. RFPs are not like that, which I completely understand. And so we kind of put a swag to it to some degree. But we've been doing this so long that I'm pretty right on based upon this equipment summary. So within our contracts, from the Show Me State, even though it's right in Illinois, but a lot of, I think, Southern Illinois folks think like Southern Missouri folks like me, which is Show Me State. So I know you guys wanted, want to see 1 year, 2 year, 3 year pricing options. My pricing is stagnant across the board. Unless you guys grow, which unless you pull in Southern Seven's health department, right, and you want Union County Health Department over here under your umbrella, something of that crazy nature, that price is going to stay stagnant, right? But in our contract, we have a 30-day out, because that's how I do business. It's word of mouth. If you don't like what we're doing, hey, let's get divorced. I mean, because I think IT is as close to kind of marriage or dating as there is, because there's so much trust that has to be involved with data these days, and you have to trust the person that is mitigating that data daily. So to have that trust, if we're doing something that is unabashed to what your vision is, I don't want to be in a bad marriage. I mean, we've been doing this since 2009, and we haven't had a bad marriage because I think we marry well. I think the discovery process that we go through mandates that you figure out who we are, and we figure out who you are. Because at the end of the day, I always say, we're not right for every customer. I'll be honest. I get referrals 4 or 5 times a week, and I only really bid on 1 or 2 of these type of contracts a month. Because we're very particular, to be honest with you, who we do business. Sometimes the size of the companies is just not there for us too. Sometimes the size of the company is just way too big, let's just be honest. But with what I know about Union County and a referral that was given to me by one of my business associates, Gary Wills, we do a lot of business with Heartland Digital from an IT perspective. We're a copier company, but we do a lot of other IT for IT customers. He's the one who actually just alluded to me about, hey, Union County's having an RFP. Gene, you're really good at what you got to do. I know what you do in St. Louis and for the other county that you're working on over in Missouri, and then what we do for SEMO Electric, what we do for Bi-County Health Department here in Marion. I said, yeah, I think you got a good shot at it. Why don't you, give them what you have, your spiel. So that's really why we're here today. We're not here to get in a long-term contract and lock you in for a rate that then all of a sudden, man, this Gene guy came in here and he said it was going to be $4,700, and then all of a sudden, 2 months later, it's like we pay $1 per user AV, or $2 for this cybersecurity nonsense, or blah blah blah, or which is actually included for you guys. Our HIPAA security, that's included. We would call it compliance as a service. Once a year, since now ambulance districts are under a mandate to get security risk assessment because they take MIPS and MACRA, which are Medicaid kind of scenarios, we'll do it for free. We do it all the time. We do it for ambulance districts all the time, but since you're under our umbrella of M&S, we're not for that. Why pay the $1,500 or $2,000 when I can save it? Especially if it goes to hardware that makes our job easier. Because we're all in together, and that's how I acquire not only relationships with customers, is as a marriage. Because I look at it like, if we fall, you pick us up. If you fall, we pick you up. So that's my spiel. That's who we are. That's all of it in a whole. I'm sure you guys have a litany of questions you want to throw darts at me. So.
First thing, in reading this just briefly, your pricing of non-covered or non-8 to 5 hours, what does your service entail after 5? I mean,
Yeah, so
how quick, I mean, if we have an emergency at 5:30, what kind of response time is the sheriff going to have when he sends an email or calls you?
Right.
Or,
Our response time after 5, and I know it just says boilerplate language in the actual heart of that, but there is actually a response time and actually where it talks about weekends and weekdays. So weekdays from Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, it's included for the $4,700. You're usually a scenario where I put a dollar figure in there, but not for you guys, because I know 24/7 is important for the weekdays. But also the same time frame, which is our, I didn't bring that contract, I apologize. But yeah, but under,
Yeah, it's under 9.
yeah, sir. Under 9, yep.
yeah, I see that. I'm not talking about the charges. I'm wanting to know what type and how are you going to physically respond?
Right, so we have a appendix A. This is our response and resolution time. Our mean times are still after 5 o'clock, have to hit those minimums. Those are our SLA, service level agreement minimums. I don't know if I can see this, but.
And those are what?
Those are.
For us, if our.
Right, so service not available, priority 1, so within an hour. Okay, services are not available. Significant degradation of service, large number of users have a critical function. That's within 4 hours, right? Limited degradation of service, right? That affects some users, but business process can still move forward within 24 hours. And then resolution priority 4, small service degradation, like 1 end user is affected and it's user-based programming, right? So that's within 48 hours. So these are all standard, I would think, timeframes, but to answer your question specifically, my good sir, specifically, is our after 8 to 5 weekdays is that same mean time. Now, with the right respect, weekends and holidays, you'll have a primary engineer, Aaron, right? You'll have a backup engineer, Mike Yasko, and then, or what they call secondary, sorry, Mike Yasko, and then a backup engineer as Aaron. So we don't rotate and have this huge scenario where we have a multitude of engineers working on your account. I want 3 engineers that know your account inside and out. So I don't rotate them in and out. Our service level on weekends is usually within 3 hours between all 3 of those guys, okay? I just can't guarantee weekend hours from a service level agreement on that piece of paper. But do we do it? Do we hit it? Every time, every time. But after 8 to 5, weekdays, those service levels are 100% enforceable. And if we don't hit them, we give money back. If I don't hit our service levels to you, I'll give the money back to you. I'll give it right back to you. We would update our invoicing monthly, right? And if I didn't hit our service level, it's good money back.
I'm more concerned, yeah, that's nice, get the money back. I'm more concerned on consistency, knowing what we're going to be able to depend on,
Mhm.
you know.
So for instance, if the sheriff and 911, they share a server right now, so if their server goes down, based off of this stuff, I would say that's probably.
Priority 1.
Well, what I was gonna say is a priority 3 based off of it's just a limited number of users that are affected based off the whole county. But the fact that, because it's not everybody in this building affected, it's them affected. But it's extremely important. So how do we get that
That's a
from
good
a level
question.
3 to a level 1? It's only a few people, but it's high priority.
So when we do our actual hardened pricing, we will put into that contract that are certain servers in all types of enterprise that might look on paper as a category 3 or a level 3 that are 100% a primary 1. and being your CAD server with Lawman, and I'm not, Code Red maybe, or I don't know what you guys use for an ambulance.
No, but we are running software that gets 12 EKGs through our server that goes out to the
Right.
hospital, so
Right,
it has
correct.
to be up.
It has to be up, so we just make that a priority one. We
Okay.
just make an addendum or within the actual constraints of our agreement that we go forward, that would be a priority one, and we would make sure that we have engineers on point, so you guys can make sure that doesn't happen. Because I know it's a critical scenario that's 24/7, that's not only a priority to you, but your priority to your taxpayers.
So are you monitoring the servers though, that you're probably gonna know when they go down before we even
100%.
call and tell you?
100%. It goes back also to the CAD server, which is kind of a, could be an issue, is, there's only one CAD server, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's
So-
the other thing, we try to build redundancies in so that you don't have just one 911 server. If it does go down, we say, all right, it's back up, because we just spun up your backup server to replace it.
Okay.
So we try to do that if we can, but yeah, I see what you're getting at, you know, something like that, you've gotta be on it as
Yeah,
fast as
we
you
gotta have
can
a meeting.
get it back, you know. so.
What is the time frame on a disaster? Say our server did go down, what would be the time frame to get us back up and running? You know, do you have backup off-site where we could just
That
flip
goes
the
back to,
switch?
it goes back to part of our discovery, our recommendations is implement a DR testing initiative, because I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if your solution right now will hold water, so I can't make those guarantees. What I can make a guarantee is that once we figure out what the problem is, we can make recommendations to where your RTO, recovery time objective, is an hour to be back up, running, operation. That's what you need to be. We can make sure that happens. I just, at this point, I'm working with information I don't know, and I have to discover.
So you gotta do an assessment and tell us what
100%.
kind of upgrades we need.
Yep, from a
In
DR
order-
perspective, yep,
Yeah.
100%, yes, sir.
Is there extra charges for after hours beyond, so that's included in
That's
the
8 to
monthly?
5, 8 to 5 weekends. The thing is this is a relationship. Do we do work on the weekends? It's not necessarily covered? Yeah, and if I need to put that into the contract as an exception, we'll do that, that we're covered all 24/7, right? But we want to keep customers, so we're not, I hate billing. I hate billing to bill. I know there's priorities, I know things happen within IT. I know users happen within IT, you know what I mean? So we're not here to bill, we're not a law firm. That's not my moniker, that's not who I am. We don't bill to bill, and I know maybe in our contract, and we can get the devil in the details in the contract work and make sure that you are as comfortable as possible from a charging scenario, because at the end of the day, you know, the proof